Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media.
Today on Spotlight, meet Dr. Lincoln Diuguid and find out about the challenges he faced and how they did not deter him from success. Plus, WashU researchers reveal how to live a longer, healthier life with anti-aging therapy. And then, in preparation of the Laumeier Art Fair, meet a designer who creates printed textiles in South City. But first, you'll never say there's nothing to do in our city after you read one of these books. It's Sunday and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
When you think of Missouri, two words that might come to mind are show and me. But the two that come to mind for these two are weird and wonderful. And to explain why, they've written a book to show you.
There are some pretty weird things in there.
Amanda Doyle is the author of 100 Things to Do in St. Louis Before You Die and 100 Things to Do in Missouri Before You Die. So when she was approached to catalog Missouri things weird and wonderful, spoiler alert, she chose about 100. They are featured in this new book from Reedy Press, aptly called Missouri Weird and Wonderful, illustrated by Dan Zetwak, who also picked some of the people, places, and peculiarities featured in the book.
The word that probably sold it for me was weird. If it would have just been wonderful Missouri, I would probably be less interested.
There are plenty of places that you could say are either one or both. That gave us a lot of freedom in some ways to be able to include things that we thought, maybe I think it's weird, but if a person from that place says, why did you put this in there? We say, oh, it's because it's wonderful. It gives you a little cover.
Whether weird or wonderful, the authors leave it to the readers to assign the adjectives. Included among the proper nouns are elephant rocks and black bears, muralists and moralists. There's the spooklight found in Joplin, and the Stygrobromus heteropotus, found only in Missouri's Pickle Spring. And speaking of pickles, how about some burnt ends or a brain sandwich, served on bread first sliced in Chillicothe, Missouri?
In the book, we have cashew chicken, which if you're from Springfield, Missouri, you probably know that cashew chicken was invented in Springfield, Missouri. I hate to burst the bubble of anyone who thinks it came from China. It did not.
Although anyone of any age enjoys fun facts, Dan Zetwak's wide-eyed illustrations make the book particularly appealing to kids because he draws from his own childhood favorites.
Yeah, so I always liked Ripley's Believe It or Not, the strange but true, but then when I moved to St. Louis, I discovered that there was sort of a local version of that, which is called Our Own Oddities by a cartoonist named Ralph Grazak that was in the paper. Strange local facts that readers would submit. I really enjoyed the homespun local nonfiction, but also fun element to that.
And with that as inspiration, there is a section at the end of the book called Oddities, which features, among other things, Fugitive Beach, which has nothing to do with fugitives, Jim the Wonder Dog, who understood Morse code, and the Telephone Museum, home to the Hushaphone and the Cheeseburger Phone, both of which appear in the book. There are dozens of things that did not make it into the book, and some readers might question a few of the things that did.
The arch is a great example, right? I mean, it's sort of like, really? Do we have to really say the arch? But yes, we have to really say the arch, partly because it's a statewide book, okay? So there are people who are gonna read this book who haven't been to the arch. And I just think even those things that are super familiar to any of us, there's always something new you can learn about them. There's always an angle you didn't know. There's always more that you can find out.
Oh, by far the hardest section was the history section. Both because it's, a lot more sort of abstract, there's, in representing the Missouri Compromise, for instance, how do you represent the Missouri Compromise? You have to come up with some sort of visual metaphor or something like that. And that section was also just a lot kind of heavier and more serious in terms of subject matter. So that was the trickiest one, but I'm really happy with sort of what we came up with.
Whether you prefer the man-made to the natural, the historical to the mythical, or the wonderful to the weird, it's all here. But the authors want readers to remember it's all out there, too.
Honestly, I hope they take it and get in their cars or get on Amtrak and go explore Missouri. I'm a very big believer in blooming where you're planted. And so if you feel kind of like you've done a lot of stuff or there's not that much exciting here and you can't wait for your next trip out of town, reorient. You know, there's plenty of things to visit here and weird things to discover that are going to keep you just as happy here as you would be anywhere else.
HEC Media. Recognized, celebrated, honored time and again for excellence in the industry. HEC Media has been bringing home the hardware for over a decade. Arts and education to author talks, magazine shows and documentaries, individual craft achievements to overall excellence. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
History Spotlight, brought to you by HEC Media and the Missouri Historical Society.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jody Sowell, President of the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis, and this is History Spotlight. Dr. Lincoln Diuguid was a Black scientist, inventor, and teacher that faced many challenges during his life and career. Public historian Cecily Hunter explains how this did not deter him from success.
Driven to cure cancer and further research on malaria, Dr. Diuguid served the St. Louis community for over 60 years. He was born on February 6, 1917, in Lynchburg, Virginia. He witnessed the Ku Klux Klan ride into his town through Main Street, and he also saw further enforcement of segregation as well within the Black community. He went on to earn his master's degree and doctoral degree at Cornell University in 1939. He later would complete 2 years of postdoctoral research on malaria. Dr. Diuguid went on to pursue science, and he was also told by his professors that because he was a Black man, that he would not be able to further his research and advancement as a chemist. But that did not deter him from continuing to apply. Eventually, he was sought out as the chief chemist at Beech Nut Chewing Gum. The conditions of that particular job was that he actually passed as a white man because he was fair-skinned. However, Dr. Diuguid refused to do so, and he declined that position. He moved to St. Louis by the mid-1940s, and he went on to open Diuguid Chemical Laboratories and Manufacturers. The building was actually located at 1215 South Jefferson Avenue, and in his son's book, Our Fathers, Making Black Men, he says that he was the first Black business to actually break through that particular neighborhood because of the restrictive covenants that were in place at that time within that neighborhood. Dr. Diuguid worked with many different students and really wanted to spark their interest in investment in science. And he went on to teach chemistry as well as physical science at what is now called Aristotle State University, and he would eventually retire by 1982. He went on to be supported by Leukemia Guild of St. Louis in efforts to research more about curing leukemia. And he also went on to research anti-malaria treatment and developed a method to convert aviation fuel into a plasticizing agent. Diuguid passed away many years later, January 27, 2015, and his legacy essentially lives on through his family. It lives on through his son's book, as well as products that are still in use today.
Next week on History Spotlight, how a non-migratory European bird species found its home in the middle of North America.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org. For more St. Louis stories, subscribe to the HEC YouTube channel. Connect STL from HEC Media.
The multi-billion-dollar anti-aging market includes products, supplements, services, and technologies geared toward slowing down the signs of aging. But beneath the surface, in the hypothalamus, a structure deep in the brain, there's a big breakthrough at Washington University's School of Medicine in St. Louis.
This is actually the first demonstration that manipulating certain specific set of neurons delays aging and extend lifespan in mammals.
Dr. Shin Ichiro Amai is a professor in the Department of Developmental Biology. Amai and his colleagues have had numerous discoveries over many years, leading to this latest one.
The hypothalamus, this tiny place within the brain, functions as the high-order control center of aging. So this time, our staff scientist and Kyohei Tokizane identified a very specific group of neurons in the brain. What we found is a very important feedback loop, the hypothalamus and adipose tissue, our fat. This circuit feedback loop regulates the pace of aging, process of aging, and lifespan.
In their study, the pathway controls signs of aging in mice.
Genetically manipulate to increase the activity of those neurons. And then this is the result.
Shown in green, key neurons producing an important protein called PPP1R17 in the dorsomedial hypothalamus of the brain activate a type of fat tissue to produce cellular fuel. This tissue is stored under the skin and in the abdominal area. This activated fat tissue releases an important protein, an enzyme called ENOM-PT. ENOM-PT returns to the hypothalamus and allows the brain to produce fuel for its functions. With age, the researchers found that the PPP1R17 protein tends to leave the nucleus of the neurons, and when that happens, the neurons in the hypothalamus send weaker signals, and that's when things begin to break down. The sympathetic nervous system wiring throughout the tissue retracts. The fat tissues no longer receive as many signals to release fatty acids and ENOM-PT. So with lower levels of ENOM-PT reaching the brain, the look and feel of aging becomes apparent. The research shows there's less energy to fuel the brain, along with fat accumulation and weight gain. The study shows what happens when these key neurons in the brain are activated in older mice, continuing the loop. The mice live longer than the control mice that have loops that lose the important proteins.
Really old ones, 30 to 31 month old, which is comparable to late 80s in humans. And if you look at these two mice, one is moving pretty actively.
Also, the look of aging is undeniable when comparing the mice.
You can clearly see the difference. And this one has a shinier, richer fur coat. This one has a kind of shabby fur coat. This guy has a kinked tail, inflexible. But this one has a very straight, still flexible tail.
The goal now is the development of new anti-aging therapies.
Still, and it's a kind of like a preclinical study stage. It's called an ENOM-PDB therapy, or ENET as an abbreviation. This is not the only one. This core feedback loop interacts with other feedback loops and then maintain, our body functions. Intervention to control the process of aging and lifespan.
So that one day, Amai says an average lifespan may be 100 to 120 years.
By understanding all of those feedback mechanisms, we could potentially come up with the very effective preventive methods, which let us avoid all the different kinds of disease and maintain the proper body functions. That's actually the goal of aging research.
Later on Spotlight, meet the St. Louis Blues towel man, along with the keeper of the Stanley Cup.
We're here at the Sheldon for our spring exhibits that will transport you around the world at various locations and some that don't even exist. When you first enter the galleries, you will encounter Studies in Architecture, works by Wallace Herndon Smith and Paul Young. This exhibition is in honor of Wallace Herndon Smith and his admiration for architecture. Before his focus on painting, Smith studied architecture at Princeton University and Washington University in St. Louis. The work on display spans years of Smith's interest in architecture. Also featured with Smith is Paul Young, a local contemporary sculptor. Young has spent years exploring St. Louis and the region's back roads, looking for old abandoned buildings to reproduce in miniature. Working from photos, Young creates scaled models with hyper-realistic details of exterior and interior details. Each artist renders everyday structures as monuments to human activity and purpose. Pairing them together opens different avenues to examining contrast and such as beauty and decay in the past and the present, and offers deep looks inside living spaces as well as studies of facades. The next exhibit you will come to is Jump, Twist, or Dive by Evan and Stacy. This body of work transforms the gallery into a play area. Presented are unusable playground objects that are familiar to us all. The viewer brings their own memories with a combination of fun and fear. And in the gallery is a bench where you can sit and reflect on your own experiences as a child. And in this section of the gallery is local painter Brian DePauli, who questions American society's live-to-work mentality, is influenced by economist John Maynard Keynes' essay that envisions by 2030 the standard of living will be higher with a work week of 15 hours and the rest of the time people devote to leisure and culture. Brian's work revolves around the idea that Keynes' prediction has come true. And when you come into this section of the gallery, you may think you're looking at large-scale photographs, but there are oils on panel that are hyper-realistic in style. We hope you can make it to the Sheldon to experience the exhibits and explore memory and place. The exhibits run through May 11th.
HEC Media, bringing you culture and community. Find all of HEC's positive programming and award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
You can find the stories featured in today's show along with past episodes and more at hecmedia.org/spotlight.
Hi, my name is Lillian Steven. I'm a textile designer and a printmaker here in St. Louis. I've always been interested in art since I was a kid, and then I really wanted to be an architect for a long time and sort of switched into industrial design. Went to college for industrial design, but then in college got really into printmaking, switched my focus to that, and now I'm kind of doing a little bit of both, mixing in that industrial design with the printmaking into designed objects that incorporate my prints. So I like to make stuff you can use in your daily life, things like tote bags, cloth napkins, tea towels, pencil bags, pillows, things that are just going to become part of your daily routine. When people see my stuff, I usually get silly, playful, mid-century modern, retro, joyful, playful. And that's great because that's exactly the kind of mood I'm going for, the kind of vibe I'm going for, the kind of things that inspire the work when I'm making it in the first place. So everything starts with a drawing I do by hand, all the patterns. So I'm drawing that with markers, on a normal piece of paper, transferring that into the computer, making that image into a silk screen, which is kind of like a big stencil, and then using a squeegee and printing that onto fabric. So the ink I'm using is specifically for textile screen printing, and the thing I really like about it is that it seeps into the fabric itself, so it's like becoming part of the object. It's not just sitting on the surface, so it's gonna last for years, and you're gonna be able to wash it, and it's not gonna come out because it's part of the object. And the colors are so vibrant. I try to approach the design process with a sense of play, with a sense of experimentation that I feel like translates into the final product itself. I just hope that the sense of play that I find in making the objects resonates with people when they use them in their daily lives.
Lillian Steven will be at the Laumeier Sculpture Park Annual Art Fair, May 10th through the 12th. Visit laumeiersculpturepark.org for more info.
HEC Media, supporting and promoting the arts. Check out our features and shows on theater, dance, music, the visual arts, and more. Find this and all our award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
As the St. Louis Blues regular season comes to a close, meet two men that don't play the game, but do contribute. First, a well-known fan that never misses a game, and a guy whose title is the keeper of the Stanley Cup.
Chances are you've seen the Towel Man. His
enthusiastic goal-counting ritual is so popular with blues fans, he's as recognizable in the stands as some of the players on the ice.
I used to never really understand what was the big attraction, but they see me when we score, or we win, or we do something that's something to celebrate. And if you're going to be associated with something, that's something pretty good to be associated with.
Ron Beckley's super fandom started when he was a kid.
I can remember watching my first time on at 67 when the team first got here, and I watched them on TV. From the get-go, I've been a hockey fan.
The Towel Man was born after Buckley watched the Blues farm team in Peoria, Illinois, and saw someone wave a towel to count each scored goal. He decided to give that a try at a Blues game.
So I got a bad towel, and I'm running down the steps, and I'm hitting people in the head. I got called a lot of names, but it wasn't Towel Man.
Today, he has sponsors for the towels, trading cards.
That's the one I like.
You like that one the best?
I like that one. You're younger and your hair is dark.
And his wife even gets in on the fun.
Hi, I'm Mary Beckley, a.k.a. Towlette.
How do you feel about towelette?
I'm not sure. I like it. I would, I act sometimes like I don't like it, but I do. I do.
We've collected these over the years.
Like is not nearly strong enough of a word.
This is a stick, at one time used to be Glenn Hall's.
For what the Towel Man thinks of this sport.
If you're a hockey fan, we're friends. If you're a blues fan, you're family. It's kind of like my therapy. It really is like an escape. When I go there, it gives me 3 hours to just completely forget about business and makes you forget about all that stuff.
Boards off the inboards.
It's a 3-hour reality show. A true reality show. I think that's the lure of it. You never know what the ending's going to be, and you never know what you're going to see.
I'm Philip Pritchard, the Vice President and Curator at the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. In 1988, I started here. When I started at the Hockey Hall of Fame, day 5, the Cup had to go north of Toronto, and it was a Friday night. We had a small staff at the time, and no one else could go. And I was the new kid on the block, so I kind of sheepishly put up my hand and said, I'll go if no one else wants to go. So I started traveling with the Cup, and the Keeper of the Cup motto kind of came from fans, actually, more than anything else. I don't think they knew what my name was or anything, so they just called me the Keeper of the Cup. The responsibilities of the Keeper of the Cup, more than anything, are looking after the world's greatest trophy. It's 130 years old now. It's 36 inches high and about 36 and a half pounds. But being the Keeper of the Cup, you're looking after the day-to-day travels of it, the responsibility of it, the promotion of it, the public relations of it. It's kind of like your best friend on the world. For anyone that's worked in a museum, everybody always wears white gloves because you don't handle artifacts with your bare skin because all of our fingerprints have oils in them, and you don't want that to get onto the artifact. Our thoughts were, the Stanley Cup is an artifact. It displays at the Hockey Hall of Fame when it's not traveling, but it's also a current trophy. So why not take the white gloves from behind the scene and preserve it and respect it like it should be as a museum artifact? I'm the main Keeper of the Cup, but there's 4 other guys that travel with it as well. It has an amazing schedule because it's on the road probably 325 days a year. It travels all the time, constantly going somewhere, whether it's with the championship team that has won it, or whether it's traveling for a promotional or a charity event, or just promoting the game of hockey. Obviously, Canada, US, it's been to Mexico, it's been to Bahamas, Finland, Sweden, Czech Republic, Russia, Slovakia, Denmark, Slovenia, Italy, Switzerland, China, Japan. This year, we visited our 32nd country. We went below the equator for the first time to Australia. So the list keeps growing. And one day, who knows, we might travel into outer space. So Lord Stanley was the 6th Governor General of Canada, and the Governor General in Canada is the go-between between our Prime Minister and the royal family in Britain. But Lord Stanley had 6 kids, 3 girls and 3 boys. 2 of the boys and 1 of the girls loved this game of hockey that was in Canada. They convinced good old dad to donate a trophy to hockey. So he went back to Sheffield, England, and purchased this little fruit bowl, punch bowl thing, got it engraved in downtown London and brought it back to Canada. and he donated it to amateur hockey. Unfortunately for Lord Stanley, he never saw a Stanley Cup game played, but his name and what he did lives on forever, and to this day, 130 years later. If you get a chance to see the Stanley Cup up close, all the engravings are on there. 1893 was the first year it was won. Back then, it was just the team name and the year. But what's great about it, every year since that is still on the Stanley Cup today. Today, because the game has grown and the cup has grown as well, it has the team name, the year, and then has all the players, the coaches, the management, the whole staff, up to 52 names. The process of engraving the Stanley Cup is pretty amazing. It gets engraved in Old Montreal. The silversmith's name now is Louise St. Jacques. She's a fourth generation silversmith. But each year for about 10 days, she gets the cup itself, and it's all hand stamped. And she gets all 52 names on there. And once we run out of space, we actually remove one of the rings and retire it into the Hockey Hall of Fame and add another ring to it. There's some great stories of the Stanley Cup over the years. It's been left at the side of the road. It's been kicked in the Rideau Canal. One of the hockey players' mom had it at her house once, and the player left without it. She thought it was a flower pot, so she planted her flowers in there. One of the cool things about traveling with the Stanley Cup is we get to all these different countries and cultures. So when they have their day, depending on where we are, they'll be drinking out of it or eating out of it. I've seen pierogies eaten out of it, homemade soup, obviously caviar. Kids have had their cereal out of it for breakfast. It's not just for the players itself, it's for their families and their kids and their grandparents. A lot of players have had their babies baptized out of it. They've taken it to cemeteries for past ones and had a moment with them there. So all of those stories, although they sound weird, but when you hear why it happens, it means so much to the Stanley Cup champion. And that's a process in the day of the life of the Stanley Cup. I think the great thing about the Stanley Cup is what it symbolizes. It symbolizes the best in hockey, and it's arguably the greatest trophy in sport. But be able to bring it out and share it with the people, it almost becomes the people's cup. There's a lot of hockey fans out there that love their team and love the game, but they don't have the ability to play pro, but they have the ability to be a fan of their favorite team. It's more than just the guys on the name on the cup. That team on the ice is one thing, but the team is way bigger than that. And the opportunity we get to take it around and show people and listen to people's stories and share their memories, to me, that's what it's all about, and that's what makes it the greatest trophy in sport.
Next week, awards recognizing accomplished authors. Find out why this did not start out as an award show. Plus, meet the new baby born at the St. Louis Zoo. Why this little one is quite a big deal. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.